Welcome to Spaces Between. This is a podcast about bringing gamers closer together, and today I have a very special guest, Mark Streed. What's going on, Mark?
Hey, how's it going? I'm super stoked to be here. Awesome,
Dude, it's
man.
like
How are
I've
you?
never been on a podcast or talked to Mark much at all, so this should be a super interesting conversation.
Crazy.
No, me and Mark have like a ton of history together. Like,
Right.
I feel like I actually owe a lot of like me being part of the Dice Tower to Mark, because Mark was like, "Hey, Z, let Roy do some videos with you or something," back on Blender like forever ago.
Yeah,
so Mark
a long
was like a
time.
little bit of a catalyst to like me joining the Dice Tower in the first place.
Yeah,
and it was
that
just
was awesome.
building friendships over social media. I mean, just us
Indeed.
talking back and forth on Twitter and
we
stuff.
immediately clicked too, right? I mean, especially the first time we met in person, it was just like, oh yeah, we've known each other forever, kind of feeling.
So if there's anybody out there who doesn't know what all you do, Mark, can you just shout out a little bit of like what you do and what you work on?
Yeah. So my main job is the Dice Tower previews. So I do all of the promotional videos for folks promoting their Kickstarter games. And, it's kind of an overview. I really want these videos to feel like, hey, I played a game last night, and I'm going to tell you about it today. Mm-hmm. I'll deep dive into some rules, but gloss over a bunch of others. Really, I'm just there to give a flavor of the game and really try to convey the fun as much as I can. And I still, even though it's a paid preview, I'm all about throwing in one or two things that I liked, but I'm very, very cognitive to not say back this game,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I really do like the artwork, but it's up to you to decide if this looks like something of interest, So
Yeah.
But yeah, they're very much promotional pieces. But the thing is, you would be surprised. I would say, a lot of people are kind of down on Kickstarter folks sometimes. I've had pretty good across the board. I mean, I've been choosy about some of the things we do. And then I've opened it up to others just so we say that we covered all sorts of games, right? Like party games, for instance, are not my favorite game, but I'll take one or two here and there just so we can show as a catalog that we've covered those kinds of things. But in general, I've really enjoyed, at least the games I've done have been at least decent, So, and then there's been a handful that are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So.
And just showing off the game and people being able to see the components and the pieces help them make a little bit more of an informed decision. I mean, about backing a Kickstarter, because
Right.
Majority of the time the games aren't necessarily 100% finished when you get them, and they're not 100% what the end product's going to look like. You don't always necessarily get all the nice juicy miniatures that are going to be in these giant Kickstarters and stuff like that. And it's like, oh man, what's going to end up being in it? But you can show it off a little bit and help people know if like, hey, this is the sort of thing that looks cool.
Right.
Whether or not you like it or not, that's up to you.
That's one of the reasons we keep it as a kind of a higher level. And there's some games that's hard not just to talk about everything because it's a little card game or something. But I tried again to keep it the higher level because if someone watches this video in 2 years, they're going to be like, wait, that rule was wrong. I'm well, that's the way it was.
Yeah. Oh man, I've actually done not even close to, but I've done a couple Kickstarter previews before, and I know especially like one of my favorite games of all time now, Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea.
Yeah.
I did a Kickstarter preview for it, but the rules were different back then, so I had to relearn some of the rules because like literally I would be like several games in with like the finished product and be playing it the way that I learned it from like way back in the day, and somebody's like, no, that's not exactly how that works, and I'm just like, what? No, you're wrong, and I'm like looking at the rule back, I'm like, oh. Yeah, you're right.
You're right.
But I've played that game enough times now. I have the rules
Yes,
down.
you have it. Remember,
But-
of all the games you play, that's probably the one you know the best, I would say.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, I
Even over Zaya, I would say.
I actually got to teach some people Zaya at the retreat.
Cool.
That's kind of like two different situations. Like, Here's of Land, Air, and Sea, I played a ton, but Zaya, I technically play tested and helped a lot with the expansion. So
Yes.
I have
Such good.
graphic design credit on that for whatever reason. Doesn't even make sense. Good stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's the main thing that I do in the Dice Tower, and then I do a little recap on crowd surfing, just kind of giving a quick like this is what I did. Here's just a quick statement about the game. Go check it out if you want more info. So that's another piece of the preview puzzle that I do. And so that's pretty fun, actually. And I always do that on the trail or walking somewhere. Or just something different than the studio, So
I mean, you've been part of the Dice Tower channel for like a long time.
Yeah, so I was looking back, actually, when we send stuff out to folks about previews, we put in there, Mark's been doing stuff with the Dice Tower for like 6 years, and it's actually like eight years. Actually.
Yeah, it's crazy like how fast like time flies on this stuff, because sometimes I see a review and I'm like, I remember watching that review or like doing stuff on the channel when this review went up. It's like, holy smokes, it's been that much time now?
It's been that much time. It's cruising by, right? I mean, it's crazy.
Time flies when you're having fun doing board game content, I guess.
I remember my first Gen Con. Eric was there, Tom was there, no Sam or Z. So those were way back Ryan Metzler and Dan King days. So that was, and that convention, that first Gen Con where I worked at the Dice Tower booth, I remember Emerson came up to me and he's like, "Hey, Mark." I'm like, "What?" A little.
And he was like, "Want to play Trick or Treats?" And you're like, "I don't know who you are. Get out of here."
That's right.
No, I'm just kidding.
I don't want to play Trick or Treats. So that was pretty fun. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of kicked everything off, was that first Gen Con. And then, we'd been doing stuff. The funny thing is, I told the story many times, but how I started with the Dice Tower was that Tom did a board game breakfast, and he said, "Hey, if anybody wants to do reviews, let me know." And so I sent him an email, and I copied Randy, and didn't tell Randy I was doing it. I just said, "Yeah, we'd like to do that."
That's awesome. Oh, man.
And Tom,
I remember the old school board game corner reviews with you and Randy, and oh man, there was so much more of Mark to love back then.
Yes, there was. And you can still go watch that original one. It was for Walk the Plank. It's still up. So.
I remember back my first Gen Con, and we saw you, and my old co-host for my old podcast, Rob, was like, "Oh my goodness, it's Mark Streed from the Dice Tower." And like you actually had some like board game corner, like Dice Towers, and you gave him one, and he was like so excited. He's like, "Oh man, Mark's like the nicest dude," or whatever. Then he started getting jealous of you coming on the podcast to fill his spot all the time, but that's here or there. But no,
he should have been more available. That's his fault.
And I feel like that was the first time I met you in person. I mean, it was just one of those interactions of like, "Hey, I know you do those videos and stuff."
Right.
But then I feel like we had like a lot more like online talking back and forth and getting into stuff, absolutely. And man, it's been fun because I mean I know we enjoy a lot of the same sort of games. So.
Oh my gosh, big time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what really?
We did what did we do? Tiny Epic thing together. Which one was it?
We did Tiny Epic Quest together.
That's what it was.
We did Zyra Embers together. We did a bunch of random things together. I feel like.
Yeah, right.
We've done like Christmas lists together with Robert Geislinger. I don't know who that guy is.
Yeah, who's that guy?
Some Arcane Wonders rep or something. I don't
know.
But yeah. It's been a cool ride.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
What do you think, like, for you, drives you to like want to create board game media, or like what made you really want to get into this stuff?
Oh man, what's so funny in the beginning? I can't believe that I even jumped in, because if you told me then that thousands of people watch your videos, I'd be like, I'm not doing that.
Oh yeah.
I was always the guy behind the camera. So, I think what it was is that we did a handful of stuff, and then I just kind of got the bug, right? And then I just enjoyed it more and more and more. And then as time went on, started making improvements, you start actually creating a real studio, having real cameras, learning like Adobe Premiere instead of using iMovie, things like that. And you just start leveling up, right? It's almost like a game in some respect. And then you get to a point where, for me, it's not just about the game, creating content about the game. I love the whole process. I love talking about the game. Then I love going to my computer and editing the video. It's like a whole separate part of what I enjoy about what I do, right? So it's not just, I get to talk about games. No. I love that whole process, the creative process around it. And that's why even if I have a game that is like, this was not so good, I still have a blast because I enjoy the whole, and even if it's a game, so I find that as a challenge. If it's a game I'm not super stoked about, how can I make this look really good? You know? So.
What would you say is like your, like, if you had like a single favorite part of doing board game media, what did you think it would be?
I think it's, for me, it's been like meeting the folks at conventions and stuff. Number one. And it reinvigorates and energizes me to some degree. I'm like, because, you know, I mean, you're like in your room, you're filming, you're just talking to a camera.
I feel like this is a repeat of last episode because I was saying the exact same thing.
Yeah, so it's that kind of thing. And when you meet the folks and then when you get some awesome comments from people, and when people get excited, like when I did the stuff at Geek and Sundry, there's a bunch of people who are like, oh, no way, that's super awesome, and they can't wait to see it. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
So it always makes me feel so awesome, and also humble, because the fact that I can bring this awesome hobby to others in a much bigger audience is just so cool.
I know one year at Gen Con, me and you were in charge of taking the tickets from people for the ticketed event
so fun.
At the Dice Tower, live show. And it's like, okay, you're taking the tickets from people at the Dice Tower live show. But the cool thing is we got to see like every single one of the Dice Tower fans come through. Yes. But they actually, like, each person, like, just really quick interacting with us. And just so many people being like, hey, man, Roy, I love your videos. Hey, Mark, I love your videos. And just having those interactions with all these people all at once was just like, I think I'll keep doing this because these people are awesome. And I want to get to know people more. And it's really cool that people enjoy what we're doing. And the funny thing is that my first time meeting you was one of those interactions. You know, it's like, Mark, hey, we love your stuff, you know?
Yeah. And that's exactly how, it's amazing how that stuff snowballs, right? I mean, you never know. And the other thing apart is that you never know who you're actually talking to. I mean, I've run into certain things like producers on TV and movie things, and then you find out later, and they're super excited, like the folks at the Dungeon Run. They are huge Dice Tower fans. And so when I was out in LA, they invited me out to set to hang out, and because they all love the Dice Tower so much. So that's amazing that people like in the Hollywood world are excited about the Dice Tower and all of us that participate on there. So I love that. That's so cool. It's just so it's not just like it's people from all over the places. I'm just amazed all the time. And I've had random encounters like just at a pizza place, and which was really fun because the guy was traveling from Illinois to California, and I was at a pizza place in Colorado, and he just happened to be there and then recognized me. And it's just one of those awesome experiences, right? And his wife was like, you totally made his day, and it was just such a fun interaction. And
you're like, no, he totally made my day.
My day, right? So, and the funny thing was my wife was like, really? So funny.
I think it's funny. Is the pizza place probably the craziest place that something's happened, or?
So far, that's the craziest. Other places are more in context, like at a random game store. Like in LA, it happened. When I was in LA, my buddy Brian that I was staying with, he took me by his favorite hobby shop. It wasn't even specifically a game store. They had a couple game aisles. Yeah. And he's getting paints and stuff because he paints miniatures. And, he does a lot of Warhammer stuff. But this guy comes over to me. It was such a fun interaction. He goes, are you? I go, yeah, it's me.
He's like, you're in the wrong state, man. You're supposed to be in Colorado. What are you doing here?
Yeah. So that was really fun. And then we talked for like 30 or 40 minutes just talking games. And that was so fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
that's awesome.
Love that.
I think for me, the craziest thing was I was literally in a job interview. And I was sitting there with the HR of the company, like talking through different stuff and signing the paperwork to get the job. And one of the other people that worked in the office came up and was like, hey, my friend like watches board game stuff. Do you do board game videos? And I'm just like, this is the most awkward thing. I'm literally in a job interview right now.
That's amazing.
But yeah, I ended up like meeting and being friends with those people and stuff. But it was still so funny, like at the time being like, this is the weirdest thing in the world. in a job interview. And somebody comes up and
hilarious.
interrupts. And so then I just had to like look at the HR and was just like, I do a thing on the internet, board games. It's whatever.
Love that. That's I think you win.
I don't know if you can get crazier than that. I guess you could.
I don't. During a job interview. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So, and it was actually, I found out it was like one of the co-owner's daughters who came up and was asking. So it was just like so weird. It's like, okay, cool, nice. Yeah, I do board game videos on the internet. So
I was at Dragon Con, and I have a video I'm working on that's going to show off some of the stuff we did at Dragon Con. But the thing is that I ran into the actor that plays Bortus on the Orville. He happened to be at a Denver convention where I was a guest as well, and that's how I met him.
Yeah.
And I just went up, I saw him, I said, hey, I don't know if you remember, but he goes, yeah, you're the board game guy. And in the midst of talking to him at Dragon Con, we exchange info, and he's like, when you're in LA, you have to come to set and hang out. I said, oh, okay. So I guess I'm going to go and hang out on the Orville set at some point.
There you go. Nice.
But it's pretty cool. And it's so, yeah, I mean, just those guys become like fans, and it's just really fun. So I love that. All aspects.
Awesome. Yep. Oh, man.
And at Dragon Con, oh my gosh, dude. We did, the reason I went is because I was invited to play in a charity game for the Heart Society, Heart Foundation. And my buddy Eddie McClintock, who is the star of Warehouse 13, I was basically helping him play the Warehouse 13 board game. And then we auctioned off 4 seats, and it was a private event.
Oh,
and
nice.
I filmed big chunks of it, so that's what I'm working on editing down. But it was so funny because he would roll dice, and he'd be like, yeah, and I'd be like, no. It's like, oh no.
He needs those dice from like Table Rua that automatically calculate the stuff for you, so you don't actually have to figure it out. Yeah,
exactly, totally, right? So, but that was really fun. I mean, I got to hang out with Eddie and do some fun stuff. So, and Dragon Con is notoriously not a board game show, right? So, I was pleasantly surprised that they sponsored that event. And then there's actually big rooms in one section of the Merchantime Mart that has big board game playing areas. They've got obviously Magic and stuff like that, but then there's just huge areas for gaming in general. So
it's kind of crazy how much board games have grown. I mean, I remember back a few years, and I mean, it was like, okay, cool, yeah, there's this really awesome board games, but now there's so many games coming out, so many amazing Kickstarters, so many conventions where it's like, basically now if you have like a geeky or nerdy convention at all, they have some place where you can play board games. Like I remember going to like a video game convention, just like a small local one in Raleigh, and they had like full board game areas and like a board game library and stuff like that. And my wife has gone to like anime conventions too, and they have board game areas too.
Yeah,
so it's just like
it's amazing.
There's just board game stuff everywhere, all over the place, and I feel like there's no stopping it because I mean it just keeps growing. I was talking to Jeremy last week, and it was like it's kind of interesting because board games, you always like are trying to like you got a 4-player game and you're one player, you need 3 other players, so you're going to go out there and try to find those 3 other players. And then one of those players really likes it, so they get the game, and then they're the one player, and then they need to find 3 other players. So it's kind of like self-perpetuating, but also you kind of have to be nice in general to play board games because I mean you're not going to be able to get people around the table with you if you can't be at least civil enough to engage in the rules of the game, you know?
Right.
So it's cool, and it's crazy to see how much it's grown. I mean, now you can get like D&D dice at Target, and there's like all sorts of crazy awesome board games on the Target wall there that's like, holy smokes. And
you're like, wow, that's here.
Yeah. And I mean, they have games that I'm sure you've gone into Target and been like, I did a preview of that, I did a preview of that, I did a preview of that. Yep. Like, how does that feel?
It's weird.
Yeah,
and it's also because I'm seeing games way earlier than most folks now. So when they actually hit and people are so excited at conventions, I'm like, oh yeah, I played that a long time ago. You know. So
Mark is living in the future of board games, cutting edge.
Exactly. I am not about the most recent release anymore. I'm about the future release.
Yeah. But when Mark played it, it was paper.
It was paper. That's one of the things, though, I tell folks when they come to me with their game. I said, you're paying to do this, have us do this video and make it a promotional piece.
Yes.
Don't send me a printed off your desk jet prototype, because
you want to try to draw eyes as much as possible, right?
Yes. And to some degree, and maybe even mostly, that's what I look for. I'm not so concerned about how the game plays. I want to make sure it looks amazing on camera. So that's a big part of what I look for.
Do you think what do you think is like the most important like piece of like a Kickstarter success? Like, is there like one piece of advice you'd give to like anybody who's trying to do like a board game Kickstarter?
Wow, just one piece?
Okay, let's talk about multiple pieces. Go ahead.
All right, so for starters, I think there needs to be not just videos on day one. I think you need to be promoting and pushing it, much like what Moonrakers did, way before the campaign ever starts. And I feel like there's a lack of that sometimes. I think that early promotion, getting people excited, is huge. And I understand why publishers want their game, the videos and content all on day one. But I came from a marketing background where we did epic, huge campaigns for like HP and Motorola and, Jim Beam. And when you do campaigns like that, you want fresh and new content weekly.
Yeah.
So the fact that everybody is relying in the board game world on a day one content is just ludicrous to me.
Yeah.
Keep it present, keep it up front for everybody to see. If you have 10 videos, release 3 a week or something like that, I just don't I like I said, I understand where they're coming from and why they want that day one impact, right? But I still feel like there's a missed opportunity for a big chunk of this stuff to not say, hey, let's do 3 videos on day one that are how to plays or overviews. Then week 2, we're going to do videos that focus on this deck of cards or these characters,
Right.
And then week 3, we're going to do videos that focus on the story of the game, just something, keep it fresh. Don't have just like 10 videos of an overview, because then it's just people are going to pick and choose who they like to watch. Yeah. I just feel like there's a huge missed marketing opportunity there. And when I talk to folks about doing previews, I keep trying to preach this to them, because I came from like a marketing world. This is how you do things. I'm so confused. But yeah, no, anyway, I think those are some of the big things. And then you have to be mindful about who you're going up against, because if you've got like Simon releasing the same day as you, it's probably not the best choice to have your game go up that day, unless it's some sort of niche game that is totally something different.
I feel like the consumer only has like so much budget a month, and if you're in the same month or in the same pay period or same paycheck as another really big game, people are gonna have to choose, and you don't want to choose. You want to be the one that they choose, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's just it's so crazy that people are like, oh, I don't care. And then then they decide like a week later, oh, we're going to cancel. I'm like, okay, if you would have waited, you might have had a better chance. And then I also feel like if I was doing a campaign, I would never go near November, December, and January. I wouldn't touch those months ever. Unless you're, again, Simon, come on, they could release a game on Christmas Day and probably fund. But
I feel like the best time is like, I don't know, those early months, like not January, but like, I don't know, March and April feels like a good time for me, because it feels like sometimes there's a drought of actual games coming out then. So the fact that there's a drought of actual games, because everybody like Gen Con Essen is like just tons of games, people are spending their money on that. But if you could make a Kickstarter when there's a drought of like actual games coming out, even though they're not going to get that game immediately, like whatever game it is, people will be like, hey, I want a game. What game should I buy? Your game pops up on Kickstarter. Then people are going to be like, holy smokes.
What is
that? I know I've dabbled in like working on making games and things like that, but like I always end up like the beginning of the year. That's when I start like prototyping and working on a game because there's no games that I want to buy in that time. So it's kind of weird.
I hear you.
You know?
Yeah. And I actually I used to think that like February, March, April were the main months. But doing this now for going on 3 years of doing the previews, man, I basically from March to October, it's just full, or February to October, it's just full on. I'm not seeing, very seldom do I see a slowdown. There might be a couple weeks here and there in the summer, but as far as the people contacting us and the inflow of work, I don't really see a slowdown.
Do you think it's bad to like be ending or like right on the same time as like a big convention like Gen Con or something, or Essen, when
Actually,
people, or is it good to be open then so people might back it by seeing it at the convention?
Right.
I can see it both ways.
Yeah, I can see both ways, but I think I've seen better positive responses when your campaign is going on at the same time as the convention, or maybe your campaign is ending at the same time the convention ends. If you end right before or start right after, the campaigns don't seem to be as big. But if you incorporate the big convention into your campaign some way,
it feels like it might be good to like be the beginning of your campaign during the big convention and then be ending after like somebody got their next paycheck after the convention. You know? It's like
exactly.
You don't want to be ending in that same time when everybody else is like, oh, I'm buying this hot game and that hot game and that hot game.
Right.
Should I back this Kickstarter that I'm going to get in a year? You know.
Yep. Indeed. So yeah, I mean, those are some of the things, and then getting stuff to me early as far.
Oh yeah.
And not the last few days before. It's a little bit of a challenge when that happens, right? So, I mean, just on a personal level for getting videos done. And I try to accommodate, as much as I can when folks delay and push. And I've even had a couple delays on my end. And that's been the really cool thing. As long as you communicate, publishers are pretty open and accommodating when things come up. But, yeah, almost everybody wants day one, So...
I know this is going to be a hard-hitting question, and I know you probably haven't backed a Kickstarter in like a long time since you do all the previews, but what is your favorite Kickstarter that you have actually personally backed?
The Reckoners.
So you actually backed the game?
After I played the preview, the prototype, I immediately backed it. And he said he was going to send me one anyway. I said, I don't care, I'm backing it. I want this game.
That's crazy.
I want all the goodies that go with it, So, yeah, Reckoners was probably high on my list for that stuff.
I guess backing it is the one way to guarantee it,
Yes.
I feel like when you're doing Kickstarter previews or whatever, like most people like have in there like, hey, after the game's over or after the campaign's over and when all the backers are getting theirs, I'd like to get a copy of it too. I feel like a lot of times you end up in that like the same slot that the designer's in, where it's like, well, if we have some extra copies, we'll send you one.
Exactly.
It's so crazy to me, like how hard it is for like designers to even get their own game.
Yeah, because I wanted to do a follow-up series. Here's now the game is out. Here's my score now for the game. I really wanted to do that follow-up series, but I haven't got. I've just got barely a handful of stuff back from publishers.
That's rough.
It is, and I don't want to be like, hey, you need to send me something.
You should.
But yeah,
I'll bully him around, Mark. Give me a list of names. I'll email each one of them and be like, yo, this is Roy from the Dice Tower. I got a rocket with my guy. Don't mess with me.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
But yeah, I really thought that would be a thing and people would be excited about it, right? And I haven't really started doing a follow-up thing because I can't be consistent about it because I don't get enough titles back.
Yeah.
So, it's a little frustrating because I really thought that'd be a cool component,
I always thought it was funny because of our mutual friend Emerson or whatever will sometimes be like, oh yeah, Roy, like I'll get you this game or whatever. I'm like, no man, no you won't. I'm like, listen, I work at the Dice Tower. We're getting it before you are. Don't even play around.
Right.
We're gonna get the game. Doing reviews is where it's at though. So I guess they throw it at you, but you get to play it before it even gets reviewed. Before it's even done. So.
What is it? There's a game that I just did, Dark what is the name of that? Anyway, there's this really cool game that just went up this last week. It was just beautiful from the prototype to the gameplay. There's all these actions. Darkflow, I think is what. So what's cool is that people were complaining, oh, it's not asymmetrical. All the creatures are the same. Well, but you get to create that asymmetry because you you grab cards as part of one of your actions that then fit under your player board that chain from the basic action. So you essentially are creating what your powers are. So every time you activate that action, multiple actions fire.
Like you're building a little engine on your character board? Nice.
Yes, it's pretty cool. And then you have like portals, and you're deploying troops, and you're deploying workers to build things, and it's a battlefield kind of thing, and you're trying to gain supremacy over this world that's connected to the multiverse. It's just really fun. So I really liked it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there a game that like you've done a preview for and then just been like, I know I'm done with this, and I know I've done my preview, and the video's up, but I'm putting this back on the table and playing it again?
Oh yeah, I have a couple of those. There was one that looks like, I can't think of the name of it. Shaolia was one of them. That was a really good game. And then there's one that looks like a War of the Worlds game. It's got this really cool 50s art. And you're invading the motherships you're using, and I've played it a couple times. It's been really cool. So that game was cool. And of course, Reckoners was like that. Moonrakers, the one I did with Geek and Sundry, and we did a Dice Tower preview for that. And
it's going to be live on the channel tomorrow. Hi.
Yes. Boom. So I love that game. It might be one of my all-time favorite deck builders now. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. It's just
so
really
it's like
good.
Negotiation and deck building and all this stuff. I'm excited to see how that plays out.
You have to negotiate up front, which is really cool. Later in the game, as you become more powerful, you can start to do things on your own. But even then, it can be risky. So, but you're building an engine. You're building a better ship. You're building crew to help you, things of that nature. So, and then there's this tug of war, which I've talked about in all the videos. But you have this tug of war where you move up and then you move down. If you get too much hazard, then you move down, so you're losing points. And so you're constantly fighting back and forth to gain supremacy over everybody else. And it might feel like you're way behind in that game, but things can change really fast.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
it'll be cool to see how it plays out with the guys, because I know people compare it to Cosmic Encounter, and Cosmic is one of Tom's favorite games ever. So it'll be like, it'll be interesting to see what the guys think about it.
Yeah, so. I can't wait to see what they think, because I don't know. It's probably in the top 10 of favorite previews that I've done. So
that's awesome.
And not just because of the experience. I mean, I got to do Becca's show, Geek and Sundry, and then Becca was on my show, and I did her podcast, and obviously all of that was incredibly fun, but I had played the game before I even went out and did all that stuff. So I knew I liked it a lot already. And just to have the opportunity to showcase it in such a place was just amazing, right? And even Becca, who doesn't really say if she likes things at the end of the game, she couldn't resist in this one. She's like, I really like this game. And even on my show, she goes, can I gush because I love this game?
You're like, no, you have to be objective. Stop it.
You can't. So we turned the Dice Tower preview into kind of an after show for the game. So that was pretty fun. That whole experience was amazing. So, yeah.
And even better than that, you got to go to the Star Wars Disney thing.
I did. So my buddy that I stayed with, Brian, they hooked me up and took me for one day. So other than that one day, I was working the rest of the time. I went out to Jeff Kanata's house and I did a corner chat with him, which I still need to edit as well. This shows you how busy I've been. And then we had some family emergency stuff, and my Jeep was destroyed. My dad was driving my Jeep and was clobbered by a girl who was texting.
Man.
Hit him hard, pushed the Jeep into a truck in front of him, and just totaled it out. I had this Jeep for 14 years. I thought I was going to drive the wheels off of it. I love that vehicle. So the insurance really came through, though, and basically gave me enough money to buy my new used car. So that was good.
But is it a Jeep?
No, I didn't get a Jeep this time. I got a Mini Cooper Roadster.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, it's amazing. It had 19,000 miles on it in 2013. So, yeah, it's amazing. Oh, my gosh. I've never had so much fun with a car.
That's awesome.
I've already put like 1,200 miles on it.
Everybody's like, we used to see Mark do all these videos, like walking around the woods and things like that. Next, it's just going to be like you
driving
with like your gimbal, like driving the car down the road, and like your hat flying back.
I thought about doing that already today.
That's awesome.
Yep, too fun. Because there's a great spot in the car to hook up the GoPro and just go for it.
There you go. You're like, back roads of Colorado.
Right.
Here we go. Driving up the mountain.
So all of that's been going on. So things have been super crazy, and I haven't edited all the things I need to edit because, again, previews have to be the number one thing that I'm doing.
Right.
So that comes first, and then any extra time will go to the other. Like I'm halfway edited in both of those videos that I'm working on. So I hope in the next week or two to have those done finally. So, and I'll get them up.
And you also have to do crowd surfing. Woo!
Yes, which I filmed today. I just need to edit. So,
listen, everybody wants to know: can we get a spoiler sneak peek of what the graphic might be? Is there any spoilers you can tell us? Because Tom's saying, I remember the first time you did it, you're like, I'm gonna put like a little skeleton guy or something like that in the background, and I'll be like, oh man, I'll see if the guys notice, and they were just like, what is that? Like, what's going on? Now they look for it. They're like, oh, here's Mark. We're like, okay, when it's about to end, we're going to make sure and see what's going on.
That's awesome. Well, the only hint that I'll ever give is that
ever give
is the fact that I try to make the Easter egg related to my pick of the week in some fashion.
Are we allowed to know which game's your pick of the week, or is it too spoilerific?
So I have 3 games I'm talking about. I have Philosophia, which is set in Greece, and you play one of the great thinkers like Socrates, and you're trying to be the ultimate thinker of Greece at the end. And then we have the Quest Kids, which is like a dungeon crawl, but for like 5 years age and up, which is pretty cool. It's like my first dungeon crawl.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really neat. And then they even came up with this score sheet that, like big, like everything about it is kind of big and chunky for kids, right? Mm-hmm. The cards are, big lettering and beautiful artwork, and the player boards for the kids have big sections to put the cards and things. And then they created these score sheets that also, like the example they show is like kids using crayons to total their scores.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I think it's just really, I love that they target, like, I love dungeon crawls, right? So if my girls had been that age, I would have been all over this for them, right? And we played it with some kids, and then kids, it resonated really hugely with them. And it's just a lot of, like, you get a certain number of cards, you've got cards that are power, you have cards that are magic, and cards that are wisdom. And I just like the premise that they went to make it very dungeon crawly, and the way you deal with, but for little kids, and the way you deal with monsters, you don't kill monsters in this game, you scare them away from the dungeon. So things like that. So it's very family friendly, and I think they did a really good job. And then we have that Dark Flow game that I was telling you about that I really, really enjoyed a lot.
I wonder if that's your pick of the week this week.
It might be.
But then that means you won't have a crayon drawn goblin walking in the background.
I know.
Like you should.
I thought about that actually, and sometimes, like, I think there was one instance where I couldn't find anything related to my pick, so I had to pick something else. I think it's the one where I did the portal that opened up behind me, and then it showed the other world behind the portal, and like butterflies flew out. So that one was not specific to my pick of the week. So. But yeah, so I've got to find something really good. And there's a whole library of green screen animated things that you can tap into, right? So
was it last week when you had the moon, or not last week, but like 2 weeks ago, whatever. Last time you had the moon, and I was just like, Mark, what? That moon is totally not realistic. Like, for one, it's not tidally locked. The moon doesn't spin like that. And for two, if the moon was that close, the tides would be off the charts. So I thought it was funny. And then Z just looked over at me and was like, you're such a nerd. Like, what's wrong with you?
That's hilarious.
We had already had some sort of argument about the Fermi paradox and whether aliens exist, and I was telling them all sorts of different science things, and they were like, what's wrong with you? Science.
I love it. Science. Who cares about that?
I know, right?
Well, see, but my pick of the week was Moonrakers, right? So I had to throw the moon in. So.
And then Tom was talking about like, oh man, it makes me sad when people are like, oh man, I can't cook, I couldn't even boil water. And I'm like, it doesn't seem like it's that hard to like boil water. Like, are they just worried about like the altitude, like the boiling point, depending on the altitude? And Z's like, why are you such a nerd? But now I do it on purpose, like say sciencey things to Z just to annoy him.
That's amazing.
It doesn't annoy him. It like just makes him be like, "What's wrong with you?" It's fun.
Nerd.
It's fun.
Indeed, nerd.
Exactly. Listen, they knew the consequences. They already knew I was a nerd, so it's okay.
I have to throw out in chat real quick because Sam, he's saying, Mark, you look a little bit crispy, and like, yeah, because I walk every morning in the sun. Mm-hmm. And I'm definitely looking a little crispy.
Don't tell it. You go to the tanning bed. Don't even play.
Yeah, that's really what it is.
Listen, you've heard of the Golden Girls. This is Golden Mark Streed. He's got to have that.
Golden.
Golden listen, the preview budget, like it tanning is included in that.
Tanning is included. That's a line item.
Yeah, literally, it's like, listen, the preview this much, this much. Mark's tanning budget, like. That'd be awesome.
I think it's part of it's a requirement of my contract from Tom, I think.
Yeah. Listen, we need glowing Mark Streed.
We need a glowing, glistening brown. It's so funny.
Awesome.
Even as a kid, I generally just turn brown in the sun. I don't really burn unless I'm on water. That's a whole different thing. Water in the pool, I burn then. But other than that, it's pretty rare that I get red.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, walking every day, and I basically wake up and walk as the sun comes up, and then I'm out for like 2 hours. So,
it's so funny. I like doing all like the hiking stuff and things like that.
Yeah.
But in Florida, you can't really hike in the summer or the spring or the fall.
Or ever.
But in winter, it is like fall and spring during the rest of the season. So I'm like, I am stoked for Florida winter so I can go outside. It's going to be great.
But what is hiking in Florida? You just walk in a straight line? I mean,
and then an alligator bites you. That's basically
and then
what
an
it
alligator
is.
bites you. Oh, running from an alligator. That's hiking.
Yeah, there you go. Or lassoing and riding on the back of an alligator through the swamps in the bayou.
Yes.
There you go.
Oh, okay, that's amazing.
Awesome.
I expect a whole video around that, Roy.
There is several places where they like wrestle/wrangle alligators that you can go and watch, and they'll talk about alligators and all that stuff. There's like an alligator rescue place like just down the road. We went once, and the dude's like grabbing the alligator by the tail and pulling it out and grabbing its mouth, and they had like baby alligators. I actually have a picture of my wife and daughter holding like a baby alligator.
Oh, that's cool. Oh yeah, I remember seeing those. That was when you first moved there, right?
It actually wasn't that long ago.
Oh, okay. I thought for sure that was something you did when you first moved there.
We've been to several different places, but we haven't. That was not that long back.
Okay.
Good times.
Hiking in South Florida is dumb.
Oh yeah. I'm sure plenty of people say that. Good times. I still want to do it though, because it'd be fun.
And I expect a video. I'm telling you.
With alligators and all.
Yes.
So since you play so many of these previews and so many of these prototypes, what was like the last published game you played? Dun dun dun.
Where is that? I played the most recent one.
And it has to be one that's like not connected with you in previews at all. Like you have to have never previewed it, never done any of that stuff, but just a game that you played for the sake of playing a board game.
Yeah, the second, I can't think of what it's called, the second Choose Your Adventure card game.
Yes.
Yeah, I love those games so much because I grew up reading those books like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So those games are just amazing to me. They're phenomenal.
Yeah, Sam saw that sitting on the counter at work, and he's like, is Tom reviewing this? Like, we need to play it. And we were going to play it on Testing Tuesday, but then we're like, this might spoil too much. Because, I mean, that's basically the whole game is just reading through those things.
Yes.
So we're like, we won't do it, but we really want to play this game.
Yes. Because they're awesome.
So is there a little bit more game in the second one? Because it looked like there's like a map and stuff you move around and stuff.
So there's a little bit more game. It's still not a lot more game.
Gotcha. So it's still very much like just straight choose your own adventure.
It's still very much it adds just enough extra that you're like, oh my gosh, this is cool. So, and you know what game that I have on my shelf that I have not played that I really want to is that you like, the Lord of the Rings one.
Oh, yes. Journeys?
Yes.
That game's so good. Do you say you haven't played it yet?
I have not. Oh, it makes me sick.
You can even play that game solo, so
I know.
It's pretty fun.
But when I'm playing something solo, it's probably a preview game.
Yeah. What do you think, like, doing board games full-time for work, has it, like, affected the way that you interact with board games or that you feel about games? Or is it, like, always when you're like, I'm going to play a board game, it's going to be something for work? Or do you try to make some time to play stuff just for fun?
Yeah, it's really hard to make time to play stuff for fun. So if I can, I will for sure. I'm not even close to feeling like another game.
Yeah.
No,
you're still playing board games. It's still fun.
It's still fun. I don't care. I love it so much. And then the fact that I get to talk about it and show it to people, it's just so cool. But yeah, so like what's cool though is that like coming into November and December, I'm probably going to have a fair amount of time to catch up on some published stuff that I've been meaning to play.
Nice.
Like once the middle of November hits, the preview, landscape dies off, So I think I have one thing in December to preview, but I think that's really it.
Oh, dang.
So I'm definitely going to take time. One of the biggest things I'm doing with that gap of time is cleaning out my tower of prototypes and getting rid of stuff, because my other side of the basement is chocked full of prototypes, floor to ceiling, So I've got to clear that stuff out and make room. So that's one of the big projects. And then beyond that, I'm going to try to get friends together, because I have friends who like to work at HP, and at the end of the year they take a lot of time off, and I'm like, then let's play some games, so hopefully that's going to happen.
I feel like you need to get that Journeys of Middle-earth to the table. I know how much you love Mansions of Madness.
Yes.
And you really love Lord of the Rings too, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. Very much.
So I feel like if you're anything like me, that'll be like, holy smokes, this game's amazing.
Yes, I know. Oh, I cannot wait to try it. So that's probably one of the games I'm most disappointed about at the moment that I have not played that I really want to. And I've got a couple things in Shrink that, are like, I'd like to play that at some point here, but they're not like gnawing at me every time I see it.
Yeah, for sure.
But
awesome.
That's why that Choose Your Adventure game is so easy, because I could just play that like on the couch even. I don't need just need a coffee table to put the stuff on. So
I know the next question that everybody's just been wondering, because they miss all your caffeine streams, I'm sure. Have you been still making time to build Legos?
Oh, I have a collection of Legos I have not built, which is really sad. And I actually have folks who ping me probably weekly, when are you going to build a set again? So I got to find a way to do that. Maybe it'll be a YouTube thing or a Twitch thing, or I don't know.
Yeah.
People really liked it. So just because Caffeine decided they didn't like that content anymore, that other people still enjoyed it. So the thing with Caffeine is that they were awesome, and then the Fox execs got involved. So I think that's probably kind of changed the whole. And really, their whole model is now about esports. That's what they're most into, and I get it. I mean, that makes sense. So but I really enjoyed.
You just gotta pitch competitive Lego building to them.
Yes, that would be amazing, right? I would be totally about that. That'd be so fun.
Man.
But no, I do. The thing that's gnawing at me, that's in like the corner of my eye, is that new Star Destroyer set. Oh my gosh!
How big is it?
It's not quite as big as the Falcon, but it might actually be longer in size, but it's not as many pieces, I should say.
Gotcha.
And it's cheaper than the Falcon was.
Because that Falcon that you got's like detailed on the inside and stuff too,
yes.
right?
Yeah,
that's
it's
crazy.
Amazing. Yeah, that thing, and I got to work with Lego, and I got to work with Caffeine, and they sent me that stuff. I didn't buy any of that stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, yeah, it was amazing. So
I guess everything has its season, and I mean, you can't really complain about getting ridiculously awesome, huge Lego sets, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, the time I spent at Caffeine was really, really fun, and I don't regret it in any way. And I made a lot of good friends, like at the Dungeon Run and stuff. And those folks are amazing people, and I'm just happy to know them. So it's really cool. And again, I mean, like I said, like the producers and stuff of that show are huge Dice Tower fans, which is really fun. Because they're like, oh my gosh, you want to do like an interview with Jeff and have it air on the that's why I'm doing it.
That's awesome.
So I thought like Jeff Kanata would be like my resurrecting of the corner chat kind of thing. So, but it'll be fun. So the thing is that he's been out of commission because of health reasons, and then he's coming back next week. So I'd really like to get it edited and go up the week he's back. So, that's kind of what I'm trying to do. We'll see if that can happen.
So you're going to start bringing back like your corner chat stuff with different people?
Yeah, when I can, for sure, especially if I make more trips to LA, which it looks like that's going to happen more. I might even be doing some more stuff with Becca and them. So I have some publishers pinging me about that already. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But
that's crazy.
So that was just such an amazing thing. So I know Felicia and Ryan Day. Well, Ryan Day I really know. Felicia I know through Ryan. And I was one of my things was always, Will was doing tabletop and all that. And I was like, man, I would love to be on Geek and Sundry one day. And then to be on Becca's show was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was definitely like a bucket list item for me. And they treated me, they rolled out the red carpet. It was just so amazing. Such an incredible experience. And yeah, it was phenomenal. So
and normally the carpet's not red, but they knew that Board Game Corner is red, so they rolled out the red carpet.
Red. So true.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I hope to do more stuff with them. That would be fun. And again, tie it into Dice Tower as much as possible, right? I love the crossover stuff. I want to do more of that, right? I'd love to have other folks come do a preview with me as well. And speaking of previews, that Quest Kids game that I was telling you about for like entry to dungeon crawls, my wife, Anna, is her first preview with me, the team up, is on that game. So
that's awesome.
It was funny because she's never done anything like that. And what should have taken like an hour or two took like 6 to record. So, yeah, hopefully we can dial
I remember
that down.
back in the day, like, just takes and takes and takes and takes of stuff. Like, back when I first started, like, trying to shoot videos and things. And now I'm just like, nah, it's fine. It was like, I used to, like, stop the video camera and delete, and then do another one and stop the video camera and delete. Now it's just like, press play. If the first take doesn't work, just don't even stop it. Just keep talking, Don't you say, like, you always like put your hand out or something like that?
Or? So the reason I do that, so what I do is I start and stop, because if there's clips in there that I can pull pieces from because I like something I said in one versus the other, I'll do that still.
Gotcha.
And the reason I do the handout thing for editing purposes, so when I go through like all these clips, I go like, oh, the one right before the hand is probably the best one. Let's start with that. Yeah. So, and I know that divides up the different segments that I was working on. So, yeah. So for the longest time, I was putting no markers in. So you'd be like, oh my gosh, there's 30 clips here. I don't know what's what. And that's why the markers go up now. So you learn a lot of stuff doing this, right? So, and I guess I don't. I probably get stuff within 3 clips now. But like when Anna was here yesterday and we were filming, it was clip 30, So I never go back and delete stuff on the camera. I just leave it there because you never know. You might grab something. But I've been known still to be in the middle of editing. I have everything shot, and I don't like one word that I say, and I'll run back downstairs and change it, you know, because I'm super picky about that stuff, and it just bugs me.
The bad part is when it's like a separate day, and you're like, oh no, I guess I'll put that shirt on
Yes.
and go do it.
And what I try to do is, if I can't, for some reason, get the exact setting right, I'll be like, fine. I'll just point the camera at the table and I'll talk and make it a B-roll thing instead.
Nice. That's awesome. Behind the scenes with Mark Streed.
Behind the scenes. That's
you
exactly
should
what
do.
I do.
You should straight up do a behind the scenes preview thing. That would be awesome for the channel. Like if
I really
you
thought
just
it'd be
set up
fun.
something and like show people kind of. I feel like it would be a great promotional thing too for the actual previews themselves, because you can be like, hey, this is what it takes. This is what's going into it. Like even if you're like, hey, these are me doing takes. This is my camera setup. This is me editing. Like because we did one of those with the Dice Tower, and I think people don't realize how much work actually goes into it. And then all these people that are like, hey, I want to get a preview done, they can be like, holy smokes, you can actually use that as a thing to be like, yo, this is what Mark does, you know? Yeah. And I mean, they don't just say, oh, this is the finished video and that's my product I get. It's like, yeah, that's the product you get, but this is how it got there, you know? Yeah. And I'd love to watch that because it'd be cool to see all the different tips and tricks when you pull up After Effects and make moons rotate in the background.
Yes.
No, I know how to do that. This one. It's kind of funny because the Dice Tower guys are always like, how's he do that? I'm like, it's just green screen. It's not like that big a deal. Come on.
It's funny.
Now, the stuff you used to do for Favorite Game Friday, that was ridiculous.
It was ridiculous. Oh, my gosh. It was so much fun, though. Oh, man. I still need to do some more of that, I feel like. I miss doing that. I miss doing it a lot.
Man, it was fun because, like, I mean, I always loved that Favorite Game Friday was super low barrier to entry, and anybody could do it. But then Mark was just taking it to this insane level because you could. Because, like, hey, you're recording a, 7-second video where, you wouldn't be able to sustain doing green screen for, 30 minutes or 10-minute video. But you're like, 7 seconds, I can do whatever I want.
I can do whatever I want. Like, I put myself in the spaceship, and I was just, so fun. Yeah. Yeah, I miss doing that. The thing is that you start to learn a lot of tricks, too, because, like for the moon, for instance, I wanted the clouds to look like they were in front of the moon, so I cut out part of my video and made it transparent, and then put the green screen behind it and gave this layered effect, right? So there's all kinds of little things like that you do to set things apart, right? Yeah. So, and the other thing, one of the things that I like to do now that Berkey from Game Toppers has really hooked me up, I try to make my game mat thematic to the game that we're talking about. So that's another thing I'm doing these days that's really fun. So I hope to do more of that. So I like doing that too.
And those game mats that he has are crazy.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're just phenomenal. You know, he's done a really good job. So,
awesome.
But yeah, I mean, and then the thing about the time involved, I'll spend 3 days on just straight up playing, editing, filming, and all that to get an 8-minute video done. And because again, I'm super picky about stuff, and but then that doesn't even count all the time that I've been prepping for 2-3 weeks. I'll skim the rule book today, right? And then a week later, okay, I'm going to read the whole first section of this. So it's already kind of like I'm thinking about shots way before I'm even working on the game. And then sometimes when folks, who actually works really well, sometimes folks have put together their own how to play videos, or just kind of walking through the rule video, and I'll grab that video off YouTube, wherever they put it. I'll throw it on my phone and listen to it while I walk in the morning. Yeah. So I can get get the wheels moving about that particular game before I'm filming, and then I'll have the rule book in hand, and then I'll kind of walk through it as I'm filming. And I used to do a lot of script stuff. Well, I still do for thematic bits because I want to nail that stuff. But now I kind of just let the game flow just come out naturally. It's just kind of, I'm going to talk about this now. It just kind of happens. I don't really plan other than, you get 3 actions, and this is my favorite action, so I'm going to talk about this first, So, but there's a lot of work that goes into it, and, hopefully it shows in the video, but you never know, right?
I think your stuff's always been like amazing quality, and it's always awesome to like see. I mean, when you start editing videos and like all that stuff, you start to see all the stuff, and you're like, oh man, I see that, and this and this. And I mean, I could be like, I know how he did that, but then also you're like, I know how much time that took, that sort of stuff. And it's pretty cool. I mean, a lot of times you can get stuff set in place, and then it's not nearly as hard to replicate that sort of thing. But you got to get it there in the first place, right? You got to get that cool quality.
Yep. And I like doing shots too. Like on this Quest Kids game, I had like the overall board shown, and then I had like the board grow with cards by just fading in each section as we laid them out. Things like that. I love doing that. Right? It's a simple, easy technique, but it's so effective and it looks really cool. So,
yeah. And I still use Premiere Pro here and there, even though I'm mostly Final Cut now. I go back and use that Premiere Pro back when I do all the other stuff. But it's not bad. Sad. I mean, it's not bad. I use both. Yeah. It's fine.
I used Final Cut way back when it was, what was it, version 10? And there's a lot of folks that still feel like version 10 of Final Cut was the best. But after learning, I mean, my job at Wirestone, that last 6 months that I was there, I had really nothing going on. So they provided us a lynda.com training. So I spent 6 months learning Premiere and After Effects. I mean,
that's awesome.
So they basically paid for my next career.
I basically trial and errored everything to death. So. And then I figure out there's like a way easier way to do something that I'm doing, and I'm just like, well, now I'm embarrassed the way I've been doing this for like a year and a half. So,
Yep.
Like, I didn't realize you could, like, I know people listening to this are probably like, these nerds talking about video editing. But like, but yeah, I didn't realize there was a way to like copy the attributes of a specific thing.
Oh,
so
man.
I was like, like when I did my top 100, I had lower thirds that popped up and down, and I keyframed every single keyframe for every single bit of my top 100. The box is sliding in and out. I keyframed every single one. So I selected.
You should have called me.
I literally was just. I could have just like copied it.
Yes.
Pasted it. Done.
Yep. Absolutely.
And we have lost like. I think our viewers have just gone down to 0. No, I'm just kidding. Talk about editing tips and tricks. But oh man, there's so much stuff you learn along the way. But yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Good stuff. Awesome, man. Well, I think we're pretty much at time now. Right. Thanks so much for joining me, Mark. If there's anything you want to like shout out or tell people about, or tell things to people to look out or check out, or things that are coming up, let people know now.
Yes. So we have new previews coming out even as soon as tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. And through the month of October, it's going to be jam-packed. So definitely there's a ton of some of that stuff looks really cool, so I'm excited to show it off. Nothing specific I can talk about yet, but I mean, there's just going to be a ton of previews in October, so keep an eye out for that. However, one of the interesting things about previews in general is that I'm like gearing up. I'm like, okay, next week I'm working on this. I schedule it, and they're like, we're
going to push that back.
We're going to move that to January. Is that all right? I'm like, sure. So then I'm like shifting stuff, and then somebody else moves, which it helps because it does open up gaps that I need sometimes. But yeah, those are some of the big things to keep out for. Other than that, keep an eye out for my Dragon Con video and my Corner Chat video with Jeff Kanata. So those are a couple other unrelated to previews. I'm really excited to get those up and show folks. So.
Nice. And if somebody is actually interested in doing a Kickstarter preview with you, what do they need to do?
Just shoot me an email, mark@dicetower.com.
Can't get simpler than that. mark@dicetower.com. Hit him up. Simple. Boom. We'll try to fit you in that slot that somebody just moved their Kickstarter back to January with.
It'd be epic.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Mark. Thanks, everybody who's been in chat. Next week, I'm going to be doing the same stuff. Going to be streaming here live on Facebook on Monday night, and then this goes up the following Monday on the Dice Tower YouTube channel. You can also check these out on iTunes now. So just search for Spaces Between on iTunes. It'd be awesome to have more people listening to the audio version. Then you can listen to it in your car or wherever you are, or while you're walking in the mountains of Colorado, whatever you want to do. So. But awesome. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks so much for watching another Dice Tower video. If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to the channel for more fun, comprehensive board game coverage. Also, consider joining us at one of our events. Come to Dice Tower Retreat, a small, intimate gathering where gaming is king. Join us for Dice Tower Cruise, the largest board game cruise. Attend Dice Tower West in Las Vegas for gaming fun on the West Coast, or Dice Tower East in Orlando in sunny Florida. Dice Tower Conventions, the friendliest gaming conventions on Earth. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.